Welcome in everyone to HogvilleNET YouTube Live. Good afternoon, good evening, however you want to phrase it. Normally we come on in the morning, but this time we're coming on in the afternoon because Arkansas just picked up John Calipari, Razorbacks head coach for the men's basketball program. The Arkansas Razorbacks just picked up the first commitment for the class of 2025. And man, was it a big one. This is big time. We saw this coming. We've been talking about it for a while. But what a prize in class of 2025, national fourth ranked, national number 4, 5-star Darius Acuff Jr., 6'3" lead guard out of Detroit, plays at IMG Academy in Florida. Big time prospect. I know I keep repeating big time. I mean, this is as good as it gets in your backcourt when you're talking about this class. I mean, if you're the 4th rated player in the country, you have a case to be made that you're the best player in the country. You know, anybody can say that, but typically when you're a top 5, top 10 guy, someone out there really a lot more than one, more than one analyst believes in you when you get that high. And so, and arguably the top guard, elite player, someone just posted that. Thank you. And look, by the way, thank you for joining us on HogvilleNET YouTube Live once again. Please go hit subscribe, like, share, anything that helps us along and bring you content. We're glad to do it. Really glad to be on live today. At this time of day, because things have really been moving along with John Calipari since he took the job in early April. Basically, 3 months on the job. We saw him not only complete a top 9 roster with guys that, to me, 1 through 9 have some case to make potentially for preseason thought that they might be all league in some way, shape, or form, and certainly the talent and even experience to maybe follow through on some of that when you look ahead. And then he backfilled that roster with players 10, 11, 12, 13, and 14. We'll see where that goes. Someone's going to have to at least be a true walk-on. We'll talk more about that later. I've talked about this a lot already. But now you're looking ahead. The early November signing period, by the way, is not that far out for the class of 2025. This is, and I've said this a lot, I'm going to repeat it, I think it's the best class in years. When you look at it from a national landscape, when you look at it from that vantage point, it's good. It's solid in the state of Arkansas with in-state kids, but nationally, I think it may be top heavy. It's a deep class, but the top 10 or so players to me, I can make a case why they're close to being almost no-brainer, one-and-done type of guys. Now, sometimes things don't play out like it looks at this vantage point later on. I don't know that I've ever felt that strongly, though, about a top 10, and Darius Acuff Jr. is one of several that Arkansas is pursuing, and now he's really the first big name off the board to commit. If you look at A.J. DeBonsa, the number 1 player in 2025, he's got Arkansas on his list. When I interviewed him, he's interested in visiting. The Boozer twins, Cam, the 2nd-ranked player in the country, Darren Peterson, 3rd-ranked when you look at another guard. All of these guys remain uncommitted. So the highest rated player, at least by 247 sports standards, Darius Acuff Jr. is the first one, ranked number 4, to come off the board and commit to the Razorbacks. Acuff had an announcement ceremony that just wrapped up as I come on here. Woo pig. Cal's on a roll. Yeah, I'm going to get through all of it. But I will say this. This guy, to me, the commitment announcement comes out. Arkansas's got the first real gym, 5-star gym off the board with a commitment. But when I watched this young man, when I watched him on the Nike circuit, during the Peach Jam week, he was in the Peach Invitational, part of the Peach Jam event back in just a week or so ago. And then in the summer, in between there, with Team USA U18 playing for AmeriCup, won the gold medal, went undefeated. He was the MVP, averaged over 18 points, 4 rebounds, nearly 5 rebounds and 4 assists per game on that. During the spring on Nike EYBL circuit, as good as it gets, he averaged 23 points per game. During Peach Jam week at the Peach Invitational, 5 games, 20 points per game. John Calipari was courtside for at least 3 of his games in the first of the 2 July live periods that kind of bookend weekend after consecutive weekends, bookending the middle of the week there. And Acuff was special. I watched those games streaming, but have seen him enough now to say this guy plays not only with a great and high floor IQ, he can play bully ball, but I like his feel. He makes the correct reads to me. He's not only talented and has that kind of elite talent to go and get you a bucket or set somebody up, but I like his decision-making and getting into that. I mean, I go back to this Peach Invitational. Not only did he average 20 points, but over 47% from the field, 43% from three on volume, over 80% from the free throw line. And what I consistently see, whether it was with Team USA, whatever platform or format it's been, he makes the right reads, not just the first level of defense when he breaks it down, but when help comes, he either understands what adjustments to make using a hezzy game or stop and go, but he sets guys up. Maybe it's a crossover. And then when that third guy comes to help, now he's already at finish mode, whether he's finishing himself or he's reading how close the defender is and can he get a pass off to set someone else up for an easier score. He can get it at all three levels. I went through those percentages in his most recent 5 games. 43% from three. So he can get his threes, not just catch and shoot off the bounce. He's one of those players, you talk about the ball finds energy. Well, the ball finds him. He's a lead guard. He's already got it. But he brings that kind of energy because of his mental acuity and how he breaks down defenders on the offensive end. On the defensive end, again, I talked about some bully ball. He's physical enough at 6'3", to get into the offensive player. He does a good job of reading and crashing passing lanes, anticipating, getting deflection steals. You like to see that. Look, John Calipari, it's a spoil of riches in the backcourt at Arkansas this year. When you look at 2023 McDonald's All-American, DJ Wagner moving over from Kentucky. When you look at Boogie Flan, national top 15 rated player in the 2024 class, freshman on campus, in practice, was a McDonald's All-American 2024. Both of those guys are likely headed to the NBA after this season. They're going to have some split duties in sharing the basketball as lead guard. They'll be on the court sometimes together. This guy, Darius Acuff Jr., is that next guy Arkansas is going to have now. When you look at it, when you really add it up and look at it, they're going to have guards, lead guards, from the last from 3 consecutive McDonald's All-American classes, and potentially by the 2025 NBA draft. I don't want to get way too ahead of myself, but potentially 3 draft picks. So 2 one-and-dones, spanning, 2026. So spanning multiple drafts, it's pretty impressive that you could have maybe lottery picks, but certainly likely first rounders, at least 2 of the 3 and maybe all 3. So it just tells you what we've known about John Calipari spanning decades. Now he's at Arkansas, and we're already starting to see some of this. So if you think these talking points are a little bit looking too far ahead and I'm getting over my skis, look at the proof in the pudding. Look at the track record. Calipari develops NBA players at the highest level. He's got so many pros, and I think someone put out the other day, all the pros he's got out there have combined for somewhere nearly $4 billion in money earned over time. That's insane. So again, I go back to this. Let's let this guy have a senior year of high school coming up. I thought it was interesting, the final weekend of Peach Invitational, because his team wasn't competing for the Peach Jam title, Acuff was actually out in Las Vegas for some summer league action that final weekend. So to me, there's nothing else to prove. We've known for a while. I reported you guys. I came on here and broke it to you not long ago, a few segments ago, maybe 2 weeks ago, that Acuff, I was told, a source had told me he'd privately gone ahead and committed to Calipari, and now was just waiting until after Peach Jam to resolve, which it did last weekend, completed end of summer basketball, and now within a week, within a 5-day span there, he's now committed to the Arkansas Razorbacks. Arkansas right now, again, has the only player out of the top 5 in the country for class 2025 committed. Everybody else is still wondering what's going to happen. I think this bodes well for some other players, by the way, and I'm going to get into that. But Darius Acuff Jr., I don't know what else to say about him. I mean, this is as impressive a recruit that Arkansas's had. And they've had some really good ones. But when you look at it, this juncture and this stage of the game, I mean, remember, Nick Smith Jr. Was the number 1 player in the high school basketball stage. At least a couple of services had him that way in the class of 2022. So Corliss Williamson, top 3, way back in 1992. Arkansas's had some top 10 rated guys in the past. But having said that, anytime, again, I'll say it again, anytime you're in that top 5, you've got a case, I'm the best player in the country. And so here we go. And John Calipari continues to do what he does. I don't think there was any real concern that moving from Kentucky to Arkansas might be a game changer in terms of what Calipari's able to accomplish on the recruiting trail. and continue to land these blue chip players like this at this level, because he was doing it at Memphis before he went to Kentucky, and he did it on with the biggest of blue bloods at Kentucky for 15 years. Now he's at Arkansas. We saw the roster build, the first roster, the one that's coming up, 9 deep. It's arguably as good as anything out there. I mean, there's a case there. Arkansas, to me, I've said this over and over again, with the guys they're bringing in, if they stay healthy, you go into preseason, I think anywhere from 10 to 15 is probably a fair range starting out in preseason projections, and a 16-team SEC that's going to be loaded, going to have a lot of NCAA tournament teams, really good coaching and players and programs. I think Arkansas's top 3 or 4 right there. I think preseason those would be fair. So that tells me, with a new coaching staff and effectively no players returning until Brazil decided to come back, with all of that, that's how good the personnel is. And of course, Calipari, we can talk about the last 5 years of postseason, but really most seasons in season, his teams are really good, and they compete or at the top of the SEC. That's just a fact. So I don't see any deviation from that. And now we understand recruiting every day. The basketball is something's relevant's happening 365 days a year. In a leap year, it's one more day. It's not like other sports. There's something every day that matters. And so this matters in a big way. It gets Arkansas on the right foot. It gets Calipari some real momentum. I've been talking about this. I brought this stuff to you guys and talked about Caleb Wilson, the 6'9" combo forward out of Atlanta, plays with Knight Riders as elite. And that team won. He helped that team win the Peach Jam Championships, Nike EYBL 17U division last weekend. And this guy, that team, by the way, 25, or it's 15U, 16U, 17U. I think it's the first time it's ever happened. They won the championship at each one of those age levels. But Caleb Wilson, a part of that program this summer, and I thought had an outstanding showing during Peach Jam. But I interviewed him, and a few of these segments we've talked about it. But I interviewed him. Here's another guy ranked in the top 5, depending upon which service you look at. Top 5, I saw one projection or opinion of the top 25 players recently in the country, regardless of class, and he was 5th or 6th. I mean, he was in the top handful there. I agree with it. This guy's long. He's versatile. He's a rim protector. He's a volume rebounder. He's a slasher. His 3-point shot's emerging. He's a really tough defender already. I thought he was the best two-way player at Nike Peach Jam. Caleb Wilson, remember what I told you? I told you that he's going to visit Arkansas. He told me Arkansas is among 5 schools: Duke, Oregon, Tennessee, and the home school there, Atlanta, Georgia Tech. He told me these visits would be in the fall, and he planned to come visit Arkansas to attend a football game. So we'll see when dates shake out on that. But he also talked to me and told me he's been chatting it up with Darius Acuff Jr. Remember, I've shared this with you, and they're talking about maybe playing at the next level together. And he then told me, I think Acuff's headed to Arkansas. Well, we all thought that at that point. But still, that he told me that was the only player he's having those conversations with at that time. So it's a couple of weeks ago. Obviously, things can change there. But the idea is he's having talks with Acuff. He plans to visit Arkansas. And I'm just going to share a little bit. I'll call it intel. Things can change. I think Arkansas is the front runner for Caleb Wilson right now. If he had to make a call today and commit today, if it was happening today, I think Arkansas would get a pledge from him. I think it would be Arkansas and Caleb Wilson. And now you've got 2 top 5 players in the country for the 2025 class, if it plays out that way. Let's see what happens. We know how things move rapidly in recruiting, and we know with 5 stars, dynamics come into play. NIL is always going to be a factor now, especially with the top level guys. But they have, they can pick and choose. They can pick and choose how long they want to drag it out. AJ DeBonsa, going back to him, he told me he wants to visit Arkansas. Arkansas's in the picture. He's probably going to wait till the spring to commit or make an announcement. So that one could take a while. Cam Boozer has talked about Arkansas. Koa Pete, a top 10 rated top 5-star guy. I've been covering since the spring and summer after his 8th grade year in person. I've seen him play a lot. Love him. Reminds me somewhat of Corliss Williamson with a little more skill. 6'8", 6'9", played on the Adidas 3SSB circuit with the Compton Magic. Another player, and I'll give you a little bit of intel on this, coming straight from his camp. I just found this out within the last 24 hours. They really like Arkansas. I'm not predicting that Arkansas is in the lead right now. I'm not saying that. I have another source that thinks maybe he'll, at the end of the day, stay closer to home out west. We'll see. But Arkansas is probably, in a great shape potentially to get a visit there. Another top 10 rated 5-star guy, a guy who looks to me, and he's been a part of the Team USA basketball junior national team every summer and has had big success in that. Speaking of Acuff Jr. doing that, also Koa Pete. But some of these names, again, the names I've gone through are special kind of players to me. And just remember, Cooper Flagg was part of this class before he reclassed. That's insane to me. As good as this class is without him, it was even better with him. I'm telling you, I really like the 23 and 24 classes. 25 and 26 are, to me, special, especially 25. I single that out right now. So this is one of those players in a really strong, deep class. I think it says more about this young man because Acuff potentially in another class in another year, the point could be that he'd be the number one guy. And again, you can make that case to me if you're top 5, 10. There, you may have strong cases there to be that guy and say that you are, puff your chest out and be that guy. All right, so the breaking news, Arkansas gets Darius Acuff Jr. We felt like this is coming. National top 5 rated 5-star. Big time deal. I've talked about Caleb Wilson, that relationship. Again, we'll see what shakes out there. I mentioned the teams that Wilson looking to visit in addition to Arkansas. Duke, Oregon, Tennessee, and Georgia Tech. But I do think if a decision had to be made today, I think it would be Arkansas. But, it may, I'm not predicting that it will be Arkansas because there's time to go on this and it'll be on his time frame. And if he's taking visits in the fall, we know even if he signs early, it could stretch out into October, even mid-November when that signing period starts. And so there's plenty of time for things to change. But I think he really likes Arkansas. And again, I thought he was the best two-way player. I love his versatility, his length, size. It's all there. This guy, he told me he did nothing in June other than work out with LeBron James and Anthony Davis. Spent, I think he told me 5 weeks just in the gym with those guys. I mean, that's how you get better. And that's how you come into Peach Jam and do the kind of stuff that he did. One guy we talked about that had planned a visit, 7-footer Malachi Marino from the state of Kentucky. He's got Kentucky and Louisville and a host of other schools on his list of schools he's going to visit. He had planned to visit to Arkansas October 4th through the 6th. I confirmed that, put that out, talked about it on one of these, I think maybe the last time I was on. And then I found out a day or so later that no, that visit's not going to happen. So I don't know what changed. I don't know if he included Arkansas because at one point he had him on his visit schedule and just released it that way and had already made his mind up, or if it really happened in real time that fast within a day's time. But I'm told now that visit's not going to happen. So we got to keep an eye on that. See if something changes there. Again, high-level guys. He's a national top 25 player out of Georgetown, Kentucky, 7-footer. Calipari had been recruiting him. He had Arkansas on his top 8 or list of schools, and then had a visit scheduled and planned for October 4th through the 6th. Arkansas football hosts Tennessee that weekend on the 5th, a Saturday. But now that looks like that's off. So something changes there. I'm going to circle back and we'll hit that again. I want to get into some of this stuff because beyond the news today, we got a lot more to get to today. We're not even 20 minutes in. I'm going to hit on a lot of different things. And I appreciate you joining me. I'm glad you're here with me on HogvilleNET YouTube Live. So the next name on the list is Jasper Jordan. This guy, look, did I just say his name wrong? Someone help me out with that. Class of 2025, national top 25. Some people think of him as a 5-star, and he's 6'4" guard, explosive. He's from the state of Kentucky, and he has Arkansas now in his final 5. He's included Arkansas in his final 5. We'll see if he gets a visit. The last thing I saw him on the record talking about Calipari, he's been trying to talk him in, discussing with him about setting up a visit. We'll see if that actually happens. He will be at Overtime Elite in Atlanta this upcoming season, but he is a Kentucky native. Johnson, I knew I was sitting there. I said Jordan. I can't read my horrible handwriting because I knew that was wrong, and I'm glad someone brought that to me. It's Jasper Johnson. And he's a guy that told me a long time ago that he liked Arkansas. And, that was previous staff as well. So between both staffs, there's been some interest there. Thank you for helping me clean that up, by the way. I don't even know why I can't read my own handwriting, except that it's bad. But we'll see if he actually ever makes it to campus or something like that happens. Kentucky, Louisville, North Carolina, and Alabama. It's thought that, Jasper Jordan, son of Michael. It's thought that maybe an out-of-state school would get him, and so that is intriguing. If Arkansas, sometimes when you see these lists, 5, 6, 7 teams, it's really down to 1 or 2, and some of the other part of it's window dressing, so you just never know. But with Jasper Johnson, I'm glad I'm back on track there. With him, I really need to learn more to understand how valid that top 5 is in terms of, is he really going to maybe take a visit to Arkansas and Arkansas be in it? He would be another backcourt piece that could complement a Darius Acuff Jr., by the way. As could this next player I'm going to mention. I'm going to jump in now to some in-state guys. We're going to do that. Let's start off, since we're still talking 2025, with Isaiah Sealy. We've been on here talking about the fact that Calipari offered him a scholarship. I interviewed him, put his quotes out. He's definitely interested in coming to visit Arkansas. And he's definitely interested in Arkansas. He's got other high major offers. We'll see where that goes. He did some good things during Peach Jam. I think he started out his first game. I think it was his first game. He had a double-double, 17 points, 11 rebounds, shot the ball, efficiently. But Sealy's a 6'7". I think he's 6'7" now. 6'7" combo guard. He can help you at the 1, 2, and 3 is, I think, going to be more natural for him at the next level, more of a fit. But he can play make. He can play make with the ball. He can help you some at the 1. He's got that length and size. And again, the kind of player, if Arkansas is serious about him, now he's a top 50 rated guy, in-state guy out of Springdale. He'll be back at Springdale High School next year unless something weird happens and changes. School's not that far off. He's told me he's going to be back at Springdale for his senior season. Calipari's made the offer. That wasn't too long ago. Let's see what happens there. But that could be a guy that helps you check a size, length, and versatility box. As you move forward, as he's continued to get stronger over the past 2 years. I've talked about this repeatedly. Isaiah Sealy has figured out how to use his frame to be a little more physical, to put with some of that skill and talent that he has. And so, again, obviously Arkansas sees something it likes to extend an offer. And I think ESPN has him hovering right there around the top 50 to 55, somewhere in that range maybe. But a really good player. All right, so let's stay in state. J.J. Andrews, class of 2026. Look, man, you talk about 6'7". He's sturdy, he's athletic, he's quick, and he just plays the right way. To me, he's a jack of all trades, a Swiss Army knife. He's got emerging perimeter skill. He's a lefty, but man, he just blew it up at Peach Jam last week. The E16 level, the 16 and under, not the highest level, but that team would have beaten some of the teams in 17 on Nike circuit. I talked about that. It's not the first time I've said it. That's how good that team is. And, if you look at the last 4 games of Peach Jam, J.J. Andrews really led that team to the championship, and they won it. The last game was close, and he made huge plays down the stretch. But he had a 10 for 10 shooting game from the field, 29 points. Then in the quarterfinals, and then the semifinals, in each of those games, he put together double-doubles. One of those games, he had 23 points and 10 rebounds. The other one, 15 points, 11 rebounds. And then in the title game, 17 points. I think he had 4 rebounds, 3 assists, 3 steals maybe, and a block. But man, or a couple of blocks. I don't know, but he stuffed the stat sheet. He shot, I think he was over 68% field goal shooting in that stretch of games, those 4 games. A 10-10 game helps you, but he continued to put up numbers. So he averaged 21 points, 8 rebounds, over 68% field goal shooting, and high 70s, almost 80% from the free throw line during that 4-game stretch to close out Peach Jam with a title. In the final minute of the title game, about a minute left, the game was tied 67-all. He breaks a full court press, so he pushes in transition. Instead of selfishly going to the rim, which he probably could have finished or drawn a foul, he made a simple play. It was a lob pass, but he made it perfectly for a teammate to dunk. +2 for Brad Bill Elite at that point. On the ensuing defensive possession, he dove the floor to force a turnover. It led to a jump ball, but it was possession arrow back to his team. So that's a live ball turnover he created, or it became a dead ball turnover. And then in the final, I think, closing seconds, he ran out and got a dunk in transition. So a 7-0 run to finish that game and win that Nike E16 Peach Jam Championship. And J.J. Andrews made the big plays down the stretch of that game. So he gets an Arkansas offer. I said all that to get to the point where Calipari, in short order, right after Peach Jam, I think it was the following day, Monday or Tuesday, I tweeted it out and reported it, had an article out at HogvilleNET that J.J. Andrews picked up his Arkansas offer after talking to Calipari and Chin Coleman, associate head coach. So J.J. Andrews now, Little Rock Christian Academy, he would be a legacy. His dad was a first-team All-American offensive lineman in the 90s, or excuse me, in the early 2000s with the Razorbacks, and went on to be a big-time pro, playing with the Philadelphia Eagles. I think he was a two-time Pro Bowler and at least a one-time All-Pro first-team selection as an offensive lineman in the NFL. So he had the career at Arkansas. I think he was a two-time All-American, both times first-team All-American. And then certainly I mentioned some of his success with the Philadelphia Eagles organization. So the genetics are there. If you remember Sean Andrews, his dad, for an offensive lineman, the guy was very agile. We called him a dancing bear. He was athletic, strong. He just moved different. And it's why it allowed him to be so good and effective at his position. And so you see the athletic traits, even though this is basketball we're talking about. We're not talking about as big a man, but a taller guy. And look, JJ measured at the Nike Elite 100 camp. He measured 6'6" barefoot and a 7-foot wingspan. And he's solidly built. And this guy to me is, and ESPN has him ranked top 15 in the country, a 5-star. So it checks all the boxes for Calipari. 5-star, top 15 guy. He's in-state, and you've seen a couple of in-state offers here. There's two that comes from Calipari. Those are the two so far. So we jumped to 2026 to talk about J.J. Andrews. I'm going to jump around a little bit and stay in state. I'm going to stay in 26 right now, and then I'm going to jump back to 25 real quick. And then we're going to wrap it up and move on to some other stuff that I want to bring to you with scheduling. Staying in 2026, Aiden Chronister, the 6'7" wing out of Rogers, he'll play at Sunrise Christian Academy next season. And by the way, I'm going to just reverse for a second. J.J. Andrews will be back at Little Rock Christian Academy, I'm told. So not only do you have Sealy staying in Springdale, J.J. Andrews staying at Little Rock Christian Academy. So the in-state guys staying put that Cal's offered. We'll get to see these guys next year more easily, right? Go out to the games and not have to watch everything live stream like some of these other guys. But Aiden Chronister, class of 2026, 247 Sports has him rated the number 25 player in that class in the country, Aiden Chronister. So I think this is worth talking about here because he told me last night that he had a conversation on Wednesday with Chuck Martin, Arkansas assistant coach. So Arkansas is still in the wheelhouse there. Calipari was out to see him in Phoenix back on, I think it was June 11th. That was a Thursday, the start of the first July live period. It was a 4-day live period that weekend, a long extended weekend, and Calipari got to see him. Was courtside to watch him play. He had some really good moments playing on the Pro 16, the next Pro 16 Puma circuit. It's an up and coming circuit. It's got some good players, some 5-star, at least one 5-star guy that I'm aware of, but continues to grow just outside the top 3 in Nike, Adidas, and Under Armour. That next pro is really a good league. That's what Aiden Chronister plays on with the 17U AAO flight based out of Fayetteville. But he told me he did talk to Chuck Martin this week. He's got a lot of high major offers. Again, 247 has him rated the 25th best player in the country. So knocking on the door in that particular service of being maybe a 5-star at some point. But again, he's a sharpshooter, knockdown guy. He brings other elements to the floor. He's got really good court awareness, good passer. Needs to get stronger, but who doesn't? When you're developing and you're at that age, class of 2026, staying with Jacob Lanier. Lanier shot the ball very efficiently playing with 16U Mocan Elite and the Nike E16 Peach Jam. Very efficient, but his volume was down. I kept watching him on streaming, and it looked like he had a wristband, which I'm not used to seeing him play. And I learned after the event that he was limited. He had been to the doctor. He had his hand and had x-rays on his hand. They allowed him to play, but it was all taped up and wrapped. So I couldn't tell watching the live stream. I just thought it was a wristband. So he had a hand injury and it affected his volume. He still played, did a good job. His team advanced, didn't quite make it. I don't believe they made it to they didn't make it to the semifinals. I think they maybe got to the quarterfinals, but Mocan Elite lost there. But Jake Lamonier's been another guy that Arkansas has shown some levels of interest in. Keep an eye on him. And then jumping back to 2025 in-state guys real quick, Terrion Burgess, Alabama, Ole Miss, Oklahoma have been the teams that have really prioritized him through most of the spring. And now that we've moved through the summer, a couple of more teams I'm going to throw in there that have jumped in the mix for him, Louisville and Florida State. So I'm going to keep an eye on that, bringing you a little more intel on him. Cortland Muldrew has got multiple visits coming up. Arkansas is not one of them. Arkansas staff has had interest in him, had an eye on him. And we'll see if Arkansas ever emerges there for a visit. And Muldrew being a 6'3 guard, Terrion Burgess, 6'9 combo forward out of Benton, a 4-star. Muldrew, another 4-star 6'3 guard from Springdale, played at Springdale Harbor, but will be at Oak Hill Academy next year. I believe Burgess will be back at Benton. So Burgess has been dealing with a growing injury throughout the spring and summer, tried to play through it. It really impacted him. He missed a lot of games due to it. He was at the Adidas All-American camp last week, and he was there but didn't get to participate because of the injury. The doctors have shut him down for the summer. So it's affected his recruiting rankings. He's dropped. But, I mean, you've got, in addition to teams that have been prioritizing him in the SEC, you've got a couple of teams outside of the league, high majors in Florida State and Louisville, that have really stepped it up. So let's see where some of this goes. All of these guys, in my opinion, the names I've mentioned are guys that are probably good enough, caliber enough. Most of them for sure are. Maybe a couple of them I just need to see a little bit more to feel certain they can play in the SEC, and not just be on a team and on a roster, but actually contribute and have an impact. And again, it doesn't always happen in a freshman season, but we've got a lot of in-state guys, but we've got such a deep 2025 class. And John Calipari, again, is off to a great start. Let's jump into scheduling real quick. We've gone through recruiting. We've spent 32 minutes. I'm glad we did. The headline, if you're joining me late, Darius Acuff Jr., the national top 5 rated 5-star, is an Arkansas Razorback. He committed to the Razorbacks today during a ceremony. It was live streamed by 247 Sports. The announcement came pretty quick. He had an announcement time set for 5 p.m., I guess, Eastern time. That would be 4 o'clock here, Central Standard Time. And so it was just like 4:05, I think. So they didn't drag it out, the introduction and have a lot of talking and highlights to go through. They showed a few highlights and got right to it. And he committed to Arkansas, picking the Hogs again over the in-state school, Michigan. Of course, he plays at IMG Academy in Florida. He's from Detroit. Over Michigan, over Kansas. He visited both of those schools. Also over UConn. He visited UConn in June. Remember, he visited Arkansas in May. It was Arkansas's first high school visitor under John Calipari. So he took that visit in May, early May. I think it was May 10th through the 12th. He had been to Kansas, I think, in April. And he visited it back in the fall, Michigan, when it was the previous coaching staff, Juwan Howard. Now we know Dusty May is there, and Arkansas is going to play Michigan this year. That'll be interesting. He'll get to face the home state school. He had a hat. He had hats on the table today. I think they announced it verbally, and he was going under the shirt. I mean, he didn't actually lift a hat, but he had the hats, Kansas, Michigan, and Arkansas. UConn, after visiting there and just recently cut the Huskies out of the two-time defending national champions, cut them off his list of 4, and it got down to those 3 that I just mentioned. And then Kentucky was actually in the running too when Calipari was there because he visited. So we can even say he chose Arkansas over Kentucky, I guess. Throw that in there. I think I have it in my story that way at HogvilleNET. But if I want to thank everyone again, we're about midway through, maybe more than midway. I want to thank you for joining me. And I want to ask you here in the middle, like, subscribe, share, anything that can help us out. We appreciate it. Let's get into scheduling. I've been putting out scheduling news for a couple of weeks now. I think the last time we were on or the time before that, I brought it that the Arkansas-Illinois game in Kansas City that we already knew about during Feast Week on Thanksgiving Day, expected to be televised by CBS. Nothing official on that, but it's not just a one-off game, apparently. I'm told it's part of an MTE, a multi-team event. 4 teams involved, the Little Rock Trojans and Maryland Eastern Shore, are the other two teams. And what that means is, again, I'm just repeating stuff we already have, and then we're going to get on to some new stuff with the schedule. But just kind of reminding folks, that means Arkansas would then host the Little Rock Trojans, so an in-state D1 school should make at least two matchups against in-state Division I schools, because we know the Hogs are going to play UCA in North Little Rock on December 17th. But hosting Little Rock Trojans, and then Maryland Eastern Shore, and then the game at a neutral site in Kansas City at the T-Mobile Center against Illinois, which is, that's the marquee game of a multi-team event. And all it means is 4 teams. It's not a tournament format. It's simply you play the other 3 teams in the 4-team multi-team field. You play the other 3. And Arkansas would host, as will Illinois. So Arkansas and Illinois will each host Little Rock and Maryland Eastern Shore. Little Rock will play on the road against Illinois and Arkansas, but will host Maryland Eastern Shore, which then means, by reason of deduction, that Maryland Eastern Shore has 3 road games playing Arkansas, Illinois, and Little Rock. That, as I've reported that, we're still waiting to find out that it's been, all the I's have dotted, T's are crossed. I'm told it's greater than 90% done. Things, I guess, could come up. The one thing that won't change is Arkansas versus Illinois. So I still believe that those are the 2 opponents. I've got similar reporting on Troy out of the Sun Belt. Arkansas, I've seen a copy of the contract. Arkansas is expected to host Troy, a mid-major D1 school, on November 13th at Bud Walton Arena. So I mentioned Little Rock and Maryland Eastern Shore. I believe those games, even though I don't have dates for those, will be lead-up games in November to the November 28th game against Illinois. So now we're talking about Troy and being scheduled on November 13th. I was told this is over 90% done. I think Troy's just waiting on the signed contract to be returned. That's what I'm told. It was kind of funny. I put out an image of that contract that was sent to me. It got back to me that maybe take that down. So I put the tweet out a different way without the image of part of the contract that showed the date and the opponent for Arkansas that came from Arkansas. But I'm told that one's just a matter of should be finalized soon. Over 90% that'll happen. Will we ever play Memphis? We'll see. That would be really neat, wouldn't it? You just never know. Okay, so Troy. Speaking of Little Rock Trojans, Troy Trojans, I believe that's right. That's a team. I think if I go back 2 years ago, Arkansas with a 3 1-and-done 5-star freshman. I believe when Arkansas played Troy, it was in December, and I believe it was a close game. I mean, I think it was very close up until the end. I think Arkansas pulled that one out late. If memory serves me correctly, that's accurate. Now, what does that mean moving forward? I don't know, but I know that they came into Bud Walton Arena and gave Arkansas a scare 2 seasons ago. So we'll see. But if that game is accurate, November 13th, that would be one of the early November games, really, because I think your regular season starts at sometime during that first week. So that'd be into the second week. So it'd be early on in your non-conference schedule, even if Arkansas is set to host Troy. So if that gets finalized, we also learned Rocco Miller, who does a great job on social media of putting out various scheduling news throughout Division I college basketball for the whole landscape. He put out a few days ago that Arkansas will host North Carolina A&T. That's a Division I school in North Carolina. And I believe the game date on that is December 21st. Well, that's a Saturday. So in the past, those Saturday games at that time, right before Christmas, a lot of times that was when Arkansas would play the North Little Rock game. Always on a Saturday. And it was, right before Christmas, typically that weekend usually. So that's not the case, but Arkansas, it looks like it's going to be December 17th when Arkansas actually plays UCA, Central Arkansas in-state school, at Simmons Bank Arena in North Little Rock. So, that's a midweek game. I think that would be a first, at least in a long time. It may not be a first in going back to that arena when it was Alltel, then Verizon. You have to go back several years, but it playing in North Little Rock. So I'm not sure that it's the first midweek game. It may not be, but it's the first one in a while. If it shakes out that's when the playing date is. So North Carolina A&T and Bud Walton Arena. I've got on December 21st, And then you've got to go to November 13th for this Troy game that I've reported. And so we start to, once we fill in the schedule, and I'll go through some of the other games, but that's you can have as many as 13 non-conference games. And Arkansas is up to 9 if these opponents stick. Again, nothing formal has really been put out on much of this. But, when we're going through it, let's just try to do it as best we can chronologically. November 13th, Arkansas hosts Troy and BWA. Sometime in November later, maybe a little bit later on, you're playing Maryland, Eastern Shore, and Little Rock. Maybe one of those before the other one, obviously, not sure which or what dates. I think those will be lead-ups to the November 28th game against Illinois and Kansas City. So that's 4 November games. I feel confident those games will all be played in November. And I've got dates on 2 of them, and then the other 2, it just seems logical to me. That's usually how those things unfold. Then you get into December 3rd, Arkansas at Miami in the 2nd annual ACC-SEC Challenge. And then you get to December 10th, Arkansas against Michigan in the Jimmy V Classic in Madison Square Garden in New York City. And so, that's the Michigan game. And so really, we don't know if the Razorbacks and Calipari are going to try to squeeze any games in between those bigger matchups. When we start talking Illinois on the November 28th, Miami on December 3rd, and then a week later, Michigan on December 10th, you've got back-to-back, you got back-to-back-to-back, not only high major opponents, but you're playing all of them away from home. 2 at neutral sites and 1 is a true road game. And so that's an interesting part of the schedule. And then we get into UCA apparently on December 17th in North Little Rock, North Carolina A&T on December 21st, and then Oakland on December 30th. And so, again, one of those games in North Little Rock, UCA, the last 2 that I mentioned, North Carolina A&T, and Oakland and Fayetteville at Bud Walton Arena. So we're starting to see this schedule fill out. That's 9 opponents. We know most of the game dates on those, with the exception of a couple that I mentioned as part of that MTE. We'll see what happens there. And remember, until that's finalized, one or both of those 2 extra teams, not Arkansas and Illinois, could be swapped out. I've been told that's just not going to happen, but until I hear that all the I's are dotted and T's are crossed, I put that disclaimer out there. Same with Troy. I told it's 90% or better done, just waiting on Arkansas signatures to make this rounds, and then they'll release it. Okay, 9 out of 13. That leaves 4 more. We know Calipari's talked about Arkansas playing in Dallas. So I'm not going to just shortchange it and leave that out. That's important. Who will that be? Will it be a Big 12 school? I'd like to see that. I'd like to see Houston or Arizona or, some heavy puncher out of the Big 12 playing them in Dallas. That'd be cool. Or anybody else for that matter. I also brought up that Calipari's teams just last year at Kentucky played a non-conference game in the middle of the SEC schedule. Played Gonzaga, I believe, in February. So, could the Dallas game be something that's played later in the middle of league play? Or is there going to be another game we can't even imagine right now? But if these 9 games and teams and opponents are accurate, there's only 4 more to go. And we believe one of those will be in Dallas. Calipari also talked about working on a home and away with somebody. Someone mentioned Memphis. Well, that'd be great. That'd be cool. Maybe set up a home and away with Memphis and Penny Hardaway. Maybe that's in the works. I don't know. But I'm just throwing out as much as I can that we've either heard or confirmed at this point, because I'm seeing a lot of non-conference schedules coming out lately from some of these high major programs, some of the blue bloods actually. Arkansas is not quite there yet. So I'm interested to see if they're holding off on some of these signatures because they want to sync everything up at once, or kind of cluster it and then put a big release out and not have some of this stuff get out. But I've broken some of it anyway. Sorry when I find out about it. I did the legwork, try to confirm it. I debated whether or not I should just wait till some of it's final. I thought, you know what? If some of these change, then we'll at least know who Arkansas was efforting to get on the schedule. And if something doesn't work out, I'll tell you that happened too, and we'll figure it out. But I believe those games where the contracts are still technically pending are going to get done. All right, so 4 more to go. I mentioned what I'd like to see if Arkansas is playing in Dallas. Interested to know what some of you think about that. All right, 45 minutes in, it's Darius Acuff Jr. Day. Let's not lose sight of that. The 5-star out of Detroit, IMG Academy. Doesn't get any better. Top 5 rated 5-star in the class of 2025. John Calipari now and I didn't even mention this yet, nearly 45 minutes in. If you go back to the players he brought with him from Kentucky, all three of the high school signed players from class of 2024 had some version of a 5-star. Boogie Fland, Carter Knox, both McDonald's All-Americans. And then Billy Richmond was a composite top 25 rated 5-star. So, however you want to slice and dice it, this makes 4 5-stars for John Calipari in 3 months on the job at Arkansas. Acuff brings it to 4. And I said this the other day, if this happened, I don't believe since the 5-star ratings became a thing and we started, qualifying players with star rankings, I don't think Arkansas has ever done that. I don't think they've had 4 5-stars in a total of 4 in consecutive classes. They had the 3 5-star one and dones back in 2022. The team that went on to the Sweet 16 that year, Anthony Black, Nick Smith Jr., Jordan Walsh. The next season's recruiting class had Bay Fall, who for a while was a 5-star, but by the time the dust settled, and he was a McDonald's All-American, but by the time the dust settled in the recruiting rankings, he was outside of that top 25, and he was outside of it enough. I think it was closer to 30, and he was no longer rated a 5-star recruit. So just going off, we can mince words and, split hairs, but I think technically speaking, this will be the first time in consecutive classes Arkansas has had as many as 4 5-stars on board. Now, again, the signing period makes it official. That won't be until mid-November. One of the sources that was telling me that Arkansas was a leader for the longest time had also told me that he's going to sign early. I found out Arkansas was leading. I found out about the private commit. I found out about the time frame. I brought all that to you guys. But I was also told early period, you go, well, no shocker there. He's committed before we even get to August. Why wouldn't he sign early? Well, sometimes, Arkansas's had commitments in the past. Moses Moody, KK Robinson, Jalen Williams, they all committed in the early period when Devo had flipped from Oklahoma State and ended up signing early with Arkansas, Devo Davis. The other 3 committed around mid-November and during the right at that mid-November early signing period, but they didn't actually sign until the spring. So those distinctions matter. You say, well, it's a no-brainer. He's committed now. Why wouldn't he sign in November? I just gave you some examples of sometimes how that plays out. And again, things can change in recruiting. I don't see anything coming up or blowing up to change this commitment. This is solid, I think, for Arkansas. Practice videos, I'm going to jump into that a little bit because I love talking about them. We got to see some good stuff on Nelly Davis, the 6'4" transfer from Florida Atlantic. And we know he's just a special player. He helped lead that program to a Final Four, Florida Atlantic, to a Final Four 2 years ago, back to the NCAA tournament last year. Co-player of the year at a really good American Athletic Conference. Just an outstanding player. And to me, this is a guy that's not only going to have preseason all SEC picks, he could be preseason SEC player of the year. He should be in the discussion for that. Some preseason national player of the year discussions, preseason All-American consideration, all these things coming into it, in my opinion. But when I watched the clips of him, he's doing a little bit of everything. And it was basically 2-on-2, just, player cutting from strong side to his side, making that the strong side, pass out, shoot, or drive. And it was an interesting cut up, but he knocked down all the shots. Of course, it's highlights, not going to put anything out. But every time I look at him, I'm impressed with his size. At 6'4", he's not a slender guy. He is, there's a little Jalen Barford bulldog look to him. The guy that's built, he's sturdy. He's been through the wars of college basketball, Division I. But I look at the body and the game, and I'm just thinking, I don't see how this guy can miss. Now, I don't want to jinx anything, but I was glad to see that video cut up because I think, when you assemble a roster with 9 players and you have one guy returning, there are question marks until you really see it against live bullets. But this guy, I've seen enough against live bullets, and I have just firm belief that he's going to back it up. And, to me, this is, probably the guy, if you were putting money on it, will be Arkansas's leading scorer next year. I like what I saw in the video clips. Another video clip that really stood out to me was John Calipari basically wrapping up summer workouts. By the way, we're going to get John Calipari. I'll just tell you this now. On Monday in Fayetteville at Bud Walton Arena in the media room for a press conference. It's a recap of summer workouts. But as a university release on its social media, that video clip of him putting a bow on it, summer workouts, he got the players gather around. He said, "Look, it's the grinders that make it, and they keep playing. It's the grinders that make it in basketball." And he goes, just be that guy. It was a simple message, but he's spot on. He's spot on. I don't know how many coaches I talk to, and they get frustrated with the guys that have talent that don't live in the gym and don't put everything into being the best they can be. And that's what it takes in this sport. It just absolutely does. It's too high level. There's too much competition. You just have to be that way. And so that's the perfect messaging. And there is if anyone's paying attention to an older guy, and it's a young guy he's talking to, it's John Calipari. We talk about the success of getting guys to the next level. If they're not listening to him, they came to Arkansas for a reason, for him to help them get there. So they better be listening. I'm not preaching to him, because I'm sure they are. But man, when I saw him say that, I'm like, this is the best guy to deliver that message that you can have. If there's a chance that any player's tuning out a coach, it's not it's not a single Arkansas Razorback, because this is the best to ever do it. It's the best to ever get guys to the next level. So that really stood out to me when we look at the clips. Pro Hogs, real quick. You had a couple of Pro Hogs with basketball summer camps going on today. I was here in Little Rock at Bobby Portis youth hoops camp. Had it broken up into 2 sections today, 2 3-hour sections. I was at the early section because I knew I'd be doing this later in the day. His foundation, everything Bobby Portis does, to me, is first rate. One of the best reserve players. I mean, I think he's been the best sixth man in the NBA spanning the last 4 seasons. He's been a finalist for the Sixth Man of the Year award twice, back-to-back years. But he hasn't won it, and I think it's a shame. He is the best sixth man in the NBA. This is not bias talking. I'd be honest. If I didn't think that, I wouldn't say it. And then Jalen Williams will be a third-year pro out of Fort Smith. Had one of his camps. I think he's having multiple camps of Fayetteville, of Fort Smith. He had a camp today in Northwest Arkansas. And so you've got 2 Pro Hogs. And I talked to Bobby. He was so impressed with how many Pro Hogs there are. He told me he's talked a little bit with Calipari. He brought up the years he competed against Kentucky and had success. We talked about that team that went 38-0 in Bobby's second season. When he was a second-team All-American, he goes, we lost a couple of times to them. They were 38-0 until they got upset before winning a title in the Final Four. I think it was Wisconsin. And I reminded Bobby, I said, but you were who was the SEC Player of the Year, regardless of all those, high-level guys that Kentucky had in that record they have, and it was him. Big smile on his face. So he didn't do the bragging. I did it for him. But the other Pro Hogs, have gotten through Summer League. I'll just really quickly say my Summer League Pro Hog, when I look at the top one, was Ricky Council IV. Mason Jones was outstanding. Nick Smith Jr. had his moments. Anthony Black only played a couple of games due to injury and was held out for the rest of it. And you saw some other guys get opportunities. Jordan Walsh, his last 2 games, I think he struggled some. His last 2 games, he had a double-double and then an efficient shooting game. In his last outing, I think he put up 18 points. But, all of them, to me, usually in the Summer League, you're seeing the more younger guys. And all of these guys, I think, are going to continue to build a path to being in rotations. It takes a while sometimes. We know it took Isaiah Joe a few years. It took Jalen Williams. It takes a while to get in the rotation and stay there. And so I think all of these guys are on pace. I think they're all on pace. Some may see some sooner because of the strength of their teams. For instance, Jordan Walsh at Boston, it's a team that just won a title and had the best record in the NBA and really just dominated through the playoffs. He's not going to be settling into a rotation role anytime soon, really. But he's on a path to eventually be there, whether it's with Boston or not. And that's the one thing about the Summer League I love. It's an audition for not only the teams you're trying to find your way into playing time, but the rest of the league, because you never know what's going to happen. Mason Jones, a great example of a guy that took off 45 pounds and really helped himself. And I'm very impressed with that level of professionalism for him, because the talent's unquestioned. It's more about decision-making choices and then taking care of your body. He's added quickness. He's not the most athletic guy. He's added quickness. It's helped him defensively. I really want Mason Jones to get on an NBA team and stick because I think he's good enough not only to be on a 15-man roster, but actually help a team. So there's that. We didn't see Stanley Moody. I think he's hurt. He is on a two-way contract with Milwaukee now. We saw just little glimpses of Otis Toney, Jimmy Witt Jr. And so, all right, 55 minutes in. We're not going to get to an hour today, but we are going to close with the lead. Darius Acuff Jr., class of 2025, 6'3" guard out of Detroit, plays at IMG Academy in Bradenton, Florida. Had a huge spring and summer when he looked at Team USA competition, when he looked at the Nike EYBL circuit. And now he's an Arkansas Razorback by virtue of his commitment announcement this afternoon. It is the first top 10 rated 5-star that I'm aware of who's off the board with a commitment. And that gets Arkansas off to a great start. I'll say it one more time. I think this helps with Caleb Wilson, who's a frontline P, a very versatile combo forward. Can play the 3, the 4, even the 5. I think he can defend multiple positions. I think it helps with him. I think there's other guys in play that are ranked in that top 10 that Calipari's made priorities out of. So we'll see where it goes. But for now, you don't worry or think about all that. You celebrate the fact that you're on the board with another 5-star under John Calipari. Darius Acuff Jr., class of 2025. All right, until next time, if something breaks and we need to come on and break in, we will. We'll jump back in here tonight if we need to. But until the next time, I'll see you then. Thank you for joining me on HogvilleNET YouTube Live.